Greetings everyone, my name is Gigi and this is Let's Build, wherein I build a LEGO set timed to different media and talk about the facts concerning the topic of the build. Today's build is the LEGO Pac-Man Arcade versus Ms. Pac-Man. The footage I am using from this game is for science, educational, and research purposes. My content is transformative and protected under fair use. All footage is time-lapse with commentary. I apologize in advance for pronouncing any names and/or places incorrectly. If you want to help me reach my goal, please give me a like and subscribe. I'm just one person doing these videos after my full-time job, and I'm grateful for every new subscriber. Specifications for the LEGO set. Take a trip back to the 1980s with this LEGO Icons PAC-MAN Arcade building set for adults. Enjoy a rewarding project recreating the iconic Maze Chase cabinet arcade game, considered by many as the most influential video game of all time. Authentic detailing. This LEGO replica is loaded with retro design details and fun features, including a 4-way joystick and an illuminating coin slot. Turn the handle to activate a mechanical maze that simulates the classic chase between your favorite characters, or open the back panel to view the mechanical elements. There's even a 1980s arcade scene to build, complete with a gaming minifigure and display case with rotatable Pac-Man, BLINKY, and CLYDE figures. A players-only zone. Spend quality time with a premium LEGO building set for adults. This collectible LEGO Pac-Man model delivers an immersive build experience and makes a top gift idea for fans of retro video games. Build a 1980s cabinet arcade game. Recreate the iconic 1980s Maze Chase video game in LEGO bricks with this LEGO Icons Pac-Man Arcade building set. What's in the box? Includes all you need to build the Pac-Man arcade cabinet and a display case with rotatable Pac-Man, BLINKY, and CLYDE figures, plus a 1980s arcade scene with gaming minifigure. Packed with retro features, the cabinet has a 4-way joystick, illuminating coin slot, adjustable game score display, and a mechanical maze that simulates the classic chase between the characters. A nostalgic gift idea for adult fans of retro video games. Take time out for yourself or treat a loved one to mark any special anniversary or occasion. Dimensions: the Pac-Man arcade cabinet, non-functional gaming system, measures over 12.5 inches high, 10 inches wide, and 7 inches deep. Additional features: press a button on the display case to change the direction and demeanor of the Pac-Man, BLINKY, and CLYDE figures. Open the rear of the cabinet to view maze chase mechanisms. A project for adults. This LEGO set is part of a range of building sets designed for adult building fans with a passion for classic LEGO construction sets. Love at first bite. When the first digital arcade games were introduced in Japan in the 1970s, they took the country by storm. Soon after, the rest of the world caught wind and players flocked to dimly lit game centers everywhere, enticed by flickering pixels, mechanical music, and the alluring high score. Shooting games were the most popular and often only choices and catered mainly to male audience. Japanese game designer Toru Iwatani posed that women might also enjoy playing games if the environments were more inviting and the gameplay a little more friendlier. After exploring alternative game themes like fashion and fortune-telling, Mr. Iwatani chose the ultimate socially inclusive theme, food. The inspiration: one day as he was working on game ideas, he grabbed a slice of pizza. In the remaining pie, he saw the shape of a simple, iconic figure with its mouth open. The idea for Pac-Man was born. The game's original name, Pac-Man, was inspired by the Japanese phrase paku paku tobaru, which means gobbling up or devouring food. When the game was launched in the US, the distributor found that Pac-Man would be a more suitable name for the market. Mr. Iwatani also shared an episode where he referred to the yellow color of Lego bricks when he chose the color of Pac-Man. He chose Lego yellow because he thought his target customers, women and kids, would feel more comfortable with this warmer color. Iwatani's original Pac-Man design sketches on graph paper were used to plot the pixels on a 16 by 16 pixel grid. A global gaming phenomenon. Mr. Iwatani's theory was proven right beyond his wildest imagination. Soon after the first Pac-Man arcade game was released in 1980, it grew to an unprecedented global phenomenon. The game instantly appealed to new audiences who might never have considered visiting a gaming arcade. The cute characters and intuitive gameplay won the hearts of every generation. For the first time, women, men, kids, teens, and grandparents could share a family-friendly digital gaming experience. With more than 300,000 consoles sold in the first decade, the game grossed $2.5 billion US by the turn of the century, and it still holds the record as the most popular arcade game to date. What happens on level 256 stays on level 256. Mr. Iwatani and his team of developers never imagined anyone playing beyond 256 levels. In fact, the game wasn't even designed to have an ultimate end goal or victory scene. By the time you reach level 256, there is not enough memory left to generate a full board, and your journey through Pac-Man's maze ends here. Unless you start over, of course. Those pesky ghosts. Pac-Man fans are equally invested in the game's supporting character, the four ghosts. Each has its own unique personality and even move in different ways. Blinky is the leader of the ghost pack, nimble and very persistent. Inky, Blinky's right-hand ghost, is a little shyer than his fellow phantoms. Clyde is quite the explorer. Clyde consistently wanders into every corner he can find. Pinky, don't let Pinky's delicate looks fool you. She is a lethal opponent. Pac-Man persists. The unpretentious protagonist and playful adversaries have evolved in countless iterations over the decades. Still, the nostalgia of the original arcade game remains unrivaled, and Pac-Man remains universally relatable, timeless, and infinitely adaptable to new technologies. Beauty through simplicity. Each generation of fans has fond memories of their own version of Pac-Man. I clearly remember the classic arcade game halls. Inspired by the original arcade game version from 1980, we collaborated with Bandai Namco Entertainment to create this set. The game mechanics, color scheme, and pixelated graphics are a perfect fit for a LEGO Icons set. We wanted to capture the nostalgic gaming experience by simulating different functions. Turn on a light by pressing the button on the coin slot, move the joystick, and crank the lever on the side to move the characters through the maze. Black elements camouflage the mechanics, and a newly developed link element on the chain allows the icons to turn with the sharp corners. We hope it brings back all your favorite memories too. Sven Franek, LEGO Icons model designer. Fans have a strong affinity for the ghosts too, and we wanted to bring out their personalities in larger brick-built versions. Pac-Man, the character, was designed to look cheery and carefree and spread joy to players. 3,333,360 is the maximum score you can get on the first 255 levels. The biggest challenge was getting the ghosts to turn the corners without getting stuck. We used a robot to test it thousands of times to make sure it's solid. The world record for the fastest time with a perfect score is 3 hours, 28 minutes, 49 seconds. Mr. Iwatani is a big fan of pinball, and the graphic design for the original arcade version of Pac-Man was inspired by game boards and slot machines. The vignette with the gamer, minifigure, and Pac-Man console is a tribute to the classic arcade game halls. Pac-Man, originally called Puck-Man in Japan, is a 1980 maze video game developed and published by Namco for arcades. In North America, the game was released by Midway Manufacturing as part of its licensing agreement with Namco America. The player controls Pac-Man, who must eat all the dots inside an enclosed maze while avoiding 4 colored ghosts. Eating large flashing dots called power pellets causes the ghost to temporarily turn blue, allowing Pac-Man to eat the ghosts for bonus points. Game development began early in 1979, led by Toru Iwatani with a 9-man team. Iwatani wanted to create a game that could appeal to women as well as men, because most video games of the time had themes that appealed to traditionally masculine interests, such as war or sports. Although the inspiration for Pac-Man character was the image of a pizza with a slice removed, Iwatani has said that he rounded out the Japanese character for the mouth, Kuchi. The in-game characters were made to be cute and colorful to appeal to younger players. The original Japanese title of Puck-Man was derived from the Japanese phrase paku paku tabaru, which refers to gobbling something up. The title was changed to Pac-Man for the North American release due to the fear of vandals defacing cabinets by converting the P into an F, turning puck into a cuss word in English. Pac-Man was a widespread critical and commercial success, leading to several sequels, merchandise, and 2 television series, as well as a hit single, Pac-Man Fever, by Buckner and Garcia. The character of Pac-Man has become the official mascot of Namco and later Bandai Namco Entertainment. The game remains one of the highest-grossing and best-selling games, generating more than $14 billion in revenue as of 2016, and 43 million units in sales combined, and has an enduring commercial and cultural legacy, commonly listed as one of the greatest video games of all time. Gameplay: Pac-Man is an action maze chase video game. The player controls the eponymous character through an enclosed maze. The objective of the game is to eat all of the dots placed in the maze while avoiding 4 colored ghosts: Blinky, the red one, Pinky, which is pink, Inky, the cyan ghost, and Clyde, the orange ghost, who pursue Pac-Man. When Pac-Man eats all of the dots, the player advances to the next level. Levels are indicated by fruit icons at the bottom of the screen. In between levels are short cutscenes featuring Pac-Man and Blinky in humorous, comical situations. If Pac-Man is caught by a ghost, he loses a life. The game ends when all lives are lost. Each of the 4 ghosts has its own unique artificial intelligence, or personality. Blinky gives direct chase to Pac-Man. Pinky and Inky try to position themselves in front of Pac-Man, usually by cornering him, and Clyde switches between chasing and fleeing from Pac-Man depending on his distance from him. Placed near the 4 corners of the maze are large flashing energizers or power pellets. When Pac-Man eats one, the ghosts turn blue with a dizzied expression and reverse direction. Pac-Man can eat the blue ghosts for bonus points, When a ghost is eaten, its eyes make their way back to the center box of the maze, where the ghost regenerates and resumes its normal activity. Eating multiple blue ghosts in succession increases their value point. After a certain amount of time, blue-colored ghosts flash white before turning back into their normal forms. Eating a certain number of dots in a level causes a bonus item, usually a fruit, to appear underneath the center box. With the item can be eaten for extra bonus points. To the sides of the maze are two warp tunnels, which allow Pac-Man and the ghosts to travel to the opposite sides of the screen. Ghosts become slower when entering and exiting these tunnels. The game increases in difficulty as the player progresses. The ghosts become faster, and the Energizer's effect decreases in duration, eventually disappearing entirely. An integer overflow causes the 256th level to load improperly, rendering it impossible to complete. This is known as a kill screen. Development. After acquiring the struggling Japanese division of Atari in 1974, video game developer Namco began producing its own games in-house, as opposed to licensing them from other developers and distributing them in Japan. Company president Masaya Nakamura created a small video game development group within the company and ordered them to study several NEC-produced microcomputers to potentially create games with. One of the first people assigned to this division was a 24-year-old employee named Toru Iwatani. He created Namco's first video game, GB, in 1978, which, while unsuccessful, helped the company gain a stronger foothold in the quickly growing video game industry. He assisted in the production of the two sequels, Bombi and Cutie Q, both released in 1979. The Japanese video game industry had surged in popularity with games such as Space Invaders and Breakout, which led to the market being flooded with similar titles from other manufacturers in an attempt to cash in on the success. Iwatani felt that arcade games only appealed to men for their crude graphics and violence, and that arcades in general were seen as seedy environments. For his next project, Iwatani chose to create a non-violent, cheerful video game that appealed mostly to women, as he believed that attracting women and couples into arcades could potentially make them appear to be much more family-friendly in tone. Iwatani began thinking of things that women like to do in their time. He decided to center his game around eating, basing this on women like eating desserts and other sweets. His game was initially called PAC-MAN, based on the Japanese onomatopoeia term paku-paku taberu, referencing the mouth movement of opening and closing in succession. The game that later became Pac-Man began development in early 1979 and took a year and 5 months to complete, the longest for a video game up to that point. Iwatani enlisted the help of 9 other Namco employees to assist in production, including composer Toshio Kai, programmer Shigeo Funaki, and hardware engineer Shigeichi Ishimura. Care was taken to make the game appeal to a non-violent audience, particularly women, with its usage of simple gameplay and cute, attractive character designs. When the game was being developed, Namco was underway with designing Galaxian, which used a then-revolutionary RGB color display, allowing sprites to use several colors at once instead of using colored strips of cellophane that was commonplace at the time. This technological accomplishment allowed Iwatani to greatly enhance his game with bright pastel colors, which he felt would help attract the players. The idea for Energizers was a concept Iwatani borrowed from the Popeye the Sailor, a cartoon character that temporarily acquires superhuman strength after eating a can of spinach. It is believed that Iwatani was partly inspired by a Japanese children's story about a creature that protected children from monsters by devouring them. Frank Fogelman, the co-founder of Gremlin Industries, believes that the maze chase gameplay of Pac-Man was inspired by Sega's Head On from 1979, a similar arcade game that was popular in Japan. Iwatani has often claimed that the character of Pac-Man was designed after the shape of a pizza with a missing slice while he was at lunch. In a 1986 interview, he said that this was only half true, and that the Pac-Man character was also based on him rounding out and simplifying the Japanese character Kuchi, meaning mouth. The four ghosts were made to be cute, colorful, and appealing, using bright pastel colors and expressive blue eyes. Iwatani had used this idea before in Cutie Q, which features similar ghost-like characters, and decided to incorporate it into Pac-Man. He was inspired by the television series Casper the Friendly Ghost and the manga Obake no Kyutaro. Ghosts were chosen as the game's main antagonists because they were used as villainous characters in animation. The idea for the fruit bonuses was based on graphics displayed on slot machines, often used symbols such as cherries and bells. Originally, Namco president Masaya Nakamura had requested that all of the ghosts be red and thus indistinguishable from one another. Iwatani believed that the ghosts should be different colors, and he received unanimous support from his colleagues for this idea. The ghosts were programmed to have their own distinct personalities, so as to keep the game from becoming too boring or impossibly difficult to play. Each ghost's name gives a hint to its strategy for tracking down Pac-Man. Shadow, or Blinky, always chases Pac-Man. Speedy, or Pinky, tries to get ahead of him. Bashful, or Inky, uses more complicated strategy to zero in on him. And Pokey, or Clyde, alternates between chasing him and running away. The ghosts' Japanese names are Chase, Ambush, Fickle, and Playing Dumb, respectively. To break up the tension of constantly being pursued, humorous intermissions between Pac-Man and Blinky were added. The sound effects were among the last things added to the game, created by Toshio Kai. In a design session, Iwatani noisily ate fruit and made gurgling noises to describe to Kai how he wanted the eating effect to sound. Upon completion, the game was titled Pac-Man, based on the working title. Technology. The original arcade system board had one Z80A processor, running at 3.072 MHz, 16 kilobytes of ROM, and 3 kilobytes of static RAM. Of those, 1 kilobyte each was used for video RAM, color RAM, and generic program RAM. There were two custom chips on the board, the 285 sync bus controller and the 284 video RAM addresser, but daughter boards made only from standard parts were also widely used instead. Video output was analog, component video with composite sync. A further 8 kilobytes of character ROM was used for characters. Background tiles and sprites in an additional 1 kilobyte of static RAM was used to hold 4 BPP sprite data for one scan line and was written to during the horizontal blanking period preceding each line. Sprite size was always 16 by 16 pixels. One of the 4 colors per pixel was for transparency of the background. The monitor was installed 90 degrees rotated clockwise. The first visible scan line started in the top right corner and ends in the bottom right corner. The horizontal blanking period, which starts after the level indicator at the bottom is drawn, had a duration of 96 pixel clock ticks, enough time to fetch 4 bytes of sprite data per 16 clock ticks for 6 sprites. Although attribute memory exists for them, sprites 0 and 7 are unusable. Their pixel fetch timing windows are occupied by the bottom level indicator, which just precedes the H-blank. For sprite 0 and 2 rows of characters at the top of the screen, which just follow the H-blank for sprite 7. Release. Location testing for Pac-Man began in May 22, 1980 in Shibuya, Tokyo. Non-gamers responded well to it, finding it easy to learn, while arcade regulars were not impressed. A private showing for the game was done in June, followed by a nationwide release in July. Eyeing the game's success in Japan, Namco initialized plans to bring the game to the international market, particularly the United States. Before showing the game to distributors, Namco America made a number of changes, such as altering the names of the ghosts. Another was the game's title, as executives at Namco were worried that vandals would change the P in Pac-Man to an F. Masaya Nakamura chose to rename it Pac-Man as he felt it was closer to the game's original Japanese title of Pac-Man. In Europe, the game was released under both titles. After Pac-Man was ruled out, before Pac-Man was decided upon, early American promotional material used the name Snapper. When Namco presented Pac-Man and Rally X to potential distributors at the 1980 AMOA trade show in November, executives believed that Rally X would be the best-selling game of that year. According to Playmeter magazine, both Pac-Man and Rally X received mild attention at the show. Namco had initially approached Atari to distribute Pac-Man, but Atari refused the offer. Midway Manufacturing subsequently agreed to distribute both Pac-Man and Rally X in North America, announcing their acquisition of the manufacturing rights on November 22nd and releasing them in December. Reception. Upon its North American debut at the AMOA in 1980, the game initially received a mild response. Playmeter magazine previewed the game and called it a cute game which appears to grow on players, something which cute games are not prone to do, saying that there's more to the game than at first appears, but criticized the sound as a drawback, saying it's good for a while, then becomes annoying. Upon release, the game exceeded expectations with wide critical and commercial success. Accolades. Pac-Man was awarded Best Commercial Arcade Game at the 1982 Arcade Awards. Pac-Man also won the Video Software Dealers Association VSDA Award for Best Video Game. In 2001, Pac-Man was voted the greatest video game of all time by Dixon's poll in the UK. The Killer List of video games listed Pac-Man as the most popular game of all time. The list aggregator site Play That Game currently ranks Pac-Man as the 53rd top game of all time and Game of the Year. Impact. Pac-Man is considered by many to be one of the most influential video games of all time. The game established the maze chase game genre and was the first video game to make use of power-ups. And the individual ghosts have deterministic artificial intelligence that reacts to player actions. Pac-Man is considered one of the first video games to have demonstrated the potential of player characters in the medium. Its title character was the first original gaming mascot, It increased the appeal of video games with female audiences, and it was gaming's first broad licensing success. It is often cited as the first game with cutscenes in the form of brief comical interludes about Pac-Man and Blinky chasing each other. Although actually Space Invaders Part 2 employed a similar style of in-between level intermissions in 1979. Pac-Man was a turning point for arcade video game industry, which had previously been dominated by space shoot-'em-ups since Space Invaders. Pac-Man popularized a genre of character-led action games, leading to a wave of character action games involving player characters in 1981, such as Nintendo's prototypical platform game Donkey Kong, Konami's Frogger, and Universal Entertainment's Ladybug. Pac-Man was one of the first popular non-shooting action games, defining key elements of the genre such as parallel visual processing, which requires simultaneously keeping track of multiple entities, including the player's location, the enemies, and the energizers. Maze games became popular on home computers after the release of Pac-Man. Some of them appeared before official ports and garnered more attention from consumers, and sometimes lawyers as a result. These include Taxman and Snack Attack for the Apple II, Jawbreaker for the Atari 8-bit computers, Scarfman for the TRS-80, and KC Munchkin for the Odyssey. Namco produced several other maze games, including Rally X, Dig Dug, Xvania, and Tinkle Pit. Atari sued Philips for creating KC Munchkin in the case Atari Inc. vs. North American Philips Consumer Electronics Corp., leading to Munchkin being pulled from store shelves under court order. No major competitors emerged to challenge Pac-Man in the maze subgenre. Pac-Man inspired 3D variants of the concept, such as Monster Maze, Spectre, and early first-person shooters such as Midi Maze. John Romero credited Pac-Man as the game that had the biggest influence on his career. Wolfenstein 3D includes a Pac-Man level from a first-person perspective. Many post-Pac-Man titles include power-ups that briefly turn the tables on the enemies. The game's artificial intelligence inspired programmers who later worked for companies like Bethesda. Legacy. Guinness World Records has awarded the Pac-Man series 8 records in Guinness World Records, Gamers Edition 2008, including Most Successful Coin-Operated Game. On June 3, 2010, at the NLGD Festival of Games, the game's creator, Toru Iwatani, officially received the certificate from Guinness World Records for Pac-Man having the most coin-operated arcade machines installed worldwide, 293,822. The record was set and recognized in 2005 and mentioned in the Guinness World Records Gamers Edition 2008, awarded in 2010. In 2009, Guinness World Records listed Pac-Man as the most recognizable video game character in the United States, recognized by 94% of the population, above Mario, who was recognized 93% of the population. In 2015, the Strong National Museum of Play inducted Pac-Man to its World Video Game Hall of Fame. The Pac-Man character and game series became an icon of video game culture during the 1980s. The game has inspired various real-life recreations involving real people or robots. One event called Pac-Manhattan set a Guinness World Record for largest Pac-Man game in 2004. The business term Pac-Man defense in mergers and acquisitions refers to a hostile takeover target that attempts to reverse the situation and instead acquire its attempted acquirer, a reference to Pac-Man's energizers. The Pac-Man renormalization is named for a cosmetic resemblance to the character, and in the mathematical study of the Mandelbrot set. The game's popularity has led to Pac-Man being adopted as a nickname, such as by boxer Manny Pacquiao and the American football player Adam Jones. In 2012, the Pac-Man was inducted into the permanent collection of the Museum of Modern Art, MoMA, in New York City. This edition was part of an initial selection of 14 video games. On August 21st, in the 2016 Summer Olympics closing ceremony, during a video which showcases Tokyo as the host of the 2020 Summer Olympics, a small segment shows Pac-Man and the Ghosts racing and eating dots on a running track. Perfect scores and other records. A perfect score on the original Pac-Man arcade game is 3,333,360 points, achieved when the player obtains the maximum score on the first 255 levels by eating every dot, energizer, fruit, and blue ghosts without losing a life, then uses all 6 lives to obtain the maximum possible number of points on level 256. The first person to achieve a publicly witnessed and verified perfect score without manipulating the game's hardware to freeze play was Billy Mitchell, who performed the feat on July 3, 1999. Some record-keeping organizations removed Mitchell's score after a 2018 investigation by Twin Galaxies concluded that 2 unrelated Donkey Kong score performances submitted by Mitchell had not used an unmodded original circuit board. As of July 2020, 7 other gamers had achieved perfect Pac-Man scores on original arcade hardware. The world record for the fastest completion of a perfect score, according to Twin Galaxies, is held by David Race with a time of 3 hours, 28 minutes, 49 seconds. In December 1982, 8-year-old boy Jeffrey R. Yee received a letter from United States President Ronald Reagan congratulating him on a world record score of 6,131,940 points, possible only if he had passed level 256. In September 1983, Walter Day, chief scorekeeper at Twin Galaxies at the time, took the U.S. national video game team on tour of the East Coast to visit gamers who claimed the ability to pass that level. None demonstrated such ability. In 1999, Billy Mitchell offered $100,000 to anyone who could pass level 256 before January 1st, 2000. The offer expired with the prize unclaimed. After announcing in 2018 that it would no longer recognize the first perfect score on Pac-Man, Guinness World Records reversed that decision and reinstated Billy Mitchell's 1999 performance on June 18, 2020. Miss Pac-Man is a 1982 maze video game developed by General Computer Corporation, GCC, and published by Midway Manufacturing for arcades. It is a sequel to Pac-Man from 1980 and the first entry in the series not to be made by Namco. Controlling the title character, Pac-Man's wife, the player is tasked with eating all of the pellets in an enclosed maze while avoiding 4 colored ghosts. Eating the larger power pellets lets the player eat the ghosts, which turn blue and flee. General Computer made the game as a modification kit for the original Pac-Man, titled Crazy Auto. However, due to previous legal action with Atari Incorporated, GCC was forced to present the project to Midway Manufacturing, the North American distributor of Pac-Man. Midway purchased the project and enlisted GCC to use the game as a basis for the sequel to Pac-Man. Multiple names were considered for the game, including Miss Pac-Man and Mrs. Pac-Man, before the final name, Ms. Pac-Man, was chosen for being easier to pronounce. While development had started without Namco's consent, company president Masaya Nakamura was brought in and provided feedback on the player's character's design. Namco ultimately collected the same royalties on each Ms. Pac-Man cabinet as they had with Pac-Man. Ms. Pac-Man was acclaimed by critics for its improvements of the original gameplay and for having a female protagonist. Some have described it as superior to Pac-Man. It has been listed among the greatest video games of all time and is one of the most successful American arcade games ever made. The game's success inspired a variety of successful merchandise, several ports for numerous home consoles and handheld systems, a television cartoon that included Pac-Man, and numerous video game sequels and remakes which spawned a Ms. Pac-Man spin-off series. The rights to the game are owned by Namco's successor company, Bandai Namco Entertainment. However, the game and its title character have suffered legal ownership issues between Namco and General Computer Corporation. Gameplay. The gameplay is very similar to that of Pac-Man. The player earns points by eating pellets and avoiding ghosts. Eating an energizer or power pellet causes the ghosts to turn blue, allowing them to be eaten for extra points. Bonus fruits can be eaten for increasing point values twice per round. As the rounds progress, the speed increases and the energizers generally lessen the duration of the ghost's vulnerability, eventually stopping altogether. Differences from Pac-Man. The game has 4 mazes that appear in different color schemes and alternate after each of the game's intermissions are seen. The pink maze appears on levels 2 and 1. The light blue maze appears in levels 3, 4, and 5. The brown maze appears in levels 6 to 9, and the dark blue maze appears in levels 10 to 13. After level 13, the maze configurations alternate every 4th level between the 3rd and 4th maze. The 1st, 2nd, and 4th mazes have 2 sets of warp tunnels, as opposed to only 1 in the original maze. The walls have a solid color rather than an outline, which makes it easier for a novice player to see where the paths around the maze are. The orange ghost is called Sue rather than Clyde. Her color was later changed to purple in Pac-Land to differentiate her. The ghost's behavior patterns are different, include semi-random movement, which prevents the use of patterns to clear each round. Blinky is red, Pinky pink, move randomly in the first several seconds of each level until the first reversal. Inky, cyan, and blue, and Sue, orange, still use the same movement patterns from the previous game to their respective corners, again until the first reversal. Instead of appearing in the center of the maze, the fruits bounce around the maze, entering and, if not eaten, leaving through the warp tunnels. Once all the fruit has been encountered, they appear in random sequence for the rest of the game, starting on the 8th round. A 5,000-point banana can be followed by a 100-point pair of cherries, for example. When Ms. Pac-Man makes contact with a ghost and dies, she spins around, or as the back of the flyer says, she dramatically swoons and falls. rather than folding in on herself as the original Pac-Man did. The three intermissions follow the developing relationship between the original Pac-Man and Ms. Pac-Man, from when they first meet to having a stork drop off their baby. The latter served as the basis for Baby Pac-Man and is referenced in Junior Pac-Man. The slowdown applies to the ghosts in the warp tunnels only applies for the first 3 rounds in this game. The sound effects and music are all new. Development. Ms. Pac-Man was originally conceived as an enhancement kit for Pac-Man called Crazy Otto, created by programmers at General Computer Corporation. While Crazy Otto was in development, GCC settled a lawsuit with Atari Inc. over their Missile Command conversion kit, Super Missile Attack. Part of the settlement terms barred GCC from selling conversion kits without consent from the original game manufacturer. Rather than scrapping Crazy Otto entirely, the programmers chose to present the finished game to Midway, Namco's American distributor of Pac-Man. Midway was enthusiastic that such a game had come to their attention, as they were hoping to capitalize on the success of Pac-Man with a sequel. They bought the rights to Crazy Otto and worked with GCC and Namco to prepare the game for release. In the final development, the game's name and characters experienced multiple changes. Sprites, text, and other minor game elements were altered to better reflect the Pac-Man series. The game was initially titled Super Pac-Man, containing Pac-Man as the lead character. Inspired by the cutscenes of Crazy Otto, featuring Crazy Otto's female counterpart. The lead character was made female and the game was renamed Pac-Woman. That name was dropped in favor of Miss Pac-Man, but the developers then realized that, given the third intermission showing a stork delivering a baby to Pac-Man and the player's character, confusion could arise about their relationship. In light of this, the name was changed to Mrs. Pac-Man and then finally to Ms. Pac-Man, which rolled off the tongue more easily. Programmer Steve Golson said, "In the span of just 2 weeks, it went from Crazy Otto to Super Pac-Man to Miss Pac-Man. These later changes, and all occurred within 72 hours of actual production." Shortly before release, Dan Jarocki of Midway stated that Ms. Pac-Man was conceived in part as a response to the original Pac-Man being the first commercial video game to involve large numbers of women as players. And it was our way of thanking all those lady arcaders who have played and enjoyed Pac-Man. According to one 1982 estimate, a majority of Pac-Man players were women. This was corroborated by marketing chief Michael Leone of the Castle Park Entertainment Center, who noted his company noticed a recent trend in our game pavilions that indicates a tremendous female acceptance of Pac-Man game. Further noting it was only natural for Midway to introduce a Ms. Pac-Man. GCC co-founder Doug McRae noted Masaya Nakamura, Namco's president at the time, gave him direct feedback on Ms. Pac-Man character. In an interview, McRae said, "We sent out ROMs to Midway, and they sent them over to Japan for the president of Namco, Masaya Nakamura, to look at. He said, 'Love the concept, but get rid of the hair.' He added, 'There was a little bit of embarrassment at Namco of the fact that the sequel was being done somewhere other than in our own laboratories. The arrangement that Namco had with Midway was that Namco would still get their royalty on Ms. Pac-Man, and Midway could choose to do whatever they wanted in paying us a royalty in addition to Namco.'" Toru Iwatani, the creator of Pac-Man, is not known to have publicly commented on Ms. Pac-Man, despite questions from reporters. Release. Reporter Patrick Goldstein of the Los Angeles Times reported that the game made its public debut on February 3, 1982, in typical show business style, at a press conference at the Castle Park Entertainment Center in Sherman Oaks. He noted that the game is expected to appear in many video arcades during the next few weeks. Atari Inc. released versions for the Atari 2600, Atari 5200, Atari 7800, and Atari 8-bit computers. There were also versions for the VIC-20, Commodore 64, ZX Spectrum, IBM PC compatibles, Apple II, and TI-99 4A, released under the Atari Soft label. Unlike Pac-Man, most home versions of Ms. Pac-Man include all 3 intermission screens from the arcade version, whereas the Atari 2600 port of Pac-Man was infamous for its flashing ghosts. The 2600 port of Ms. Pac-Man had minimal flickering. A tabletop version of Ms. Pac-Man was released in 1983 by Coleco. The unit was shaped like a miniature arcade cabinet, was controlled with a small built-in joystick, and used a multicolor vacuum fluorescent display. It was a runner-up for Standalone Game of the Year at the 1983 Arcade Awards held in January 1984. Ownership. The GCC Group agreed on October 29, 1981, to give the rights to Ms. Pac-Man to Midway in exchange for royalty payments for the game's sale. At the time, Midway held the license from Namco for distribution of Pac-Man games, advertising, and merchandise in North America. After the game became wildly successful, Midway and GCC undertook a legal battle concerning merchandise royalties before ultimately reaching a settlement in 1983. This settlement stated that GCC members would be paid royalties by Midway for the usage of Ms. Pac-Man in commercial contexts. Namco, now Bandai Namco, made an additional agreement with the GCC stakeholders in 2008. While Bandai Namco does control the Ms. Pac-Man copyright and intellectual property, some royalty rights and obligations were unresolved. Reception. In the United States, Ms. Pac-Man topped the monthly replay upright cabinet charts for much of 1982, including most months between April and December. Pac-Man and Ms. Pac-Man also topped the U.S. Replay Cocktail Arcade Cabinet charts for 23 months, from February 1982 through 1983, up until February 1984. It was listed as the highest-grossing arcade game of 1982 by Cashbox and the Amusement and Music Operators Association, AMOA. Whereas Replay magazine listed Donkey Kong as the year's highest-grossing title, Cashbox later listed Ms. Pac-Man as one of the top 2 highest-grossing arcade games of 1983, along with Pole Position. It was later listed by AMOA as one of the top 5 highest-grossing video arcade games of 1984. Ms. Pac-Man sold 125,000 arcade game units by 1988, grossed $1.2 billion by 1987, and has grossed $1.5 billion as of 1995. InfoWorld stated that Atari Soft's Ms. Pac-Man for the Commodore 64 was as good as the best-selling Atari 8-bit version. The Genesis version of the game sold more than 1 million copies in the United States. The arcade game was awarded a Certificate of Merit as a runner-up for Coin-Op Game of the Year at 1982 Arcade Awards held in January of 1983. Retrospective recognition. In 1996, Electronic Gaming Monthly reported that the Genesis version of Ms. Pac-Man, which was released in 1991, was still among the top 20 best-selling Genesis games. The same year, Next Generation ranked the game version as number 12 on their top 100 games of all time, saying that it has aged far better than the original Pac-Man due to its smarter monster AI, varied mazes, moving fruits, and intermissions. They added, "It has the broadest appeal of any game Next Generation has seen, with the possible exception of Tetris. Women love it, men love it, children love it." In 1997, Electronic Gaming Monthly listed the Genesis and Super NES versions as number 89 on their 100 best games of all time, stating that the two-player simultaneous play and new mazes completely revived this classic. In 1999, Next Generation listed Ms. Pac-Man as number 41 on their top 50 games of all time, commenting, "It sounds easier than it is, and it makes the game one we consistently go back to week after week." In 2009, Game Informer put Ms. Pac-Man 10th on their list of the top 200 games of all time, saying that it trumped the original Pac-Man in nearly every way. This is down one rank from Game Informer's previous best games of all time list. Entertainment Weekly called Ms. Pac-Man one of the top 10 games for the Atari 2600 in 2013. In 2016, Ms. Pac-Man placed 5th on Time's the 50 Best Video Games of All Time list. In 2022, the Strong National Museum of Play inducted Ms. Pac-Man to its World Video Game Hall of Fame. While I did enjoy building this set, the part where the dot board or game screen is being built does become a little repetitive and a bit tedious. My fingers are not a fan of all the connector pegs. Ms. Pac-Man is the Pac-Man version I personally own for the Sega Genesis. It was actually a Christmas gift from when I was a kid. I wanted to give a sampling of all the different game modes. My sibling and I would play on cooperative mode and try to see how many babies we could get the Pac-Man family to have. This time around, I was trying different controllers to see which one would have the best input, but each style seemed to have its own hiccups. The thumbstick and joystick felt the best, but Ms. Pac-Man would occasionally get directionally confused and do a shimmy. Total build time today, 6 hours, 27 minutes, 23 seconds, which means you could watch Scott Pilgrim vs. the World at 112 minutes, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 at 138 minutes, Wreck-It Ralph at 101 minutes, and 38 minutes of Pixels, or almost 13 episodes of the Pac-Man cartoon series at 30 minutes each. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. Remember to like, subscribe, share, ring that bell, all the things for the YouTubes. Thank you.